Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something that, honestly, can feel really complicated. Social Security Disability. We hear SSD, SSDI, SSI. They get thrown around a lot, sometimes like they're the same thing, but they're definitely not. And figuring out the difference, it's crucial. So our goal here is simple. Cut through the noise. We want to lay out the real differences, who qualifies, what you get, how you apply for both SSD, meaning SSDI, and SSI. Especially useful if you're here in Virginia or nearby states. Think of this as your shortcut to getting the essentials without drowning in jargon. Okay, let's unpack this. So when people say SSD, they usually mean SSDI, right? What's the core idea there? That insurance concept.
Yeah, that's usually the case. SSD almost always refers to SSDI's Social Security Disability Insurance. And you hit it right there, it's insurance. Think of it like a policy you've paid premiums for through your Social Security taxes, FICA, taken out of your paychecks over the years. It's designed for workers who paid into the system and then unfortunately became disabled before they hit their full retirement age.
Okay, so it's something you've earned through working. What are the main things someone needs to show to qualify?
Right. There are a few key pillars for SSDI eligibility. First off, you absolutely need work credits. You have to have worked long enough and recently enough paying those Social Security taxes. How much is enough? Well, it varies, but for most adults, a rule of thumb is having worked about 5 out of the last 10 years before becoming disabled. Technically, you earn credits based on income each year, up to 4 credits per year. Most adults over 31 need 40 credits total, and critically, 20 of those must have been earned in the 10 years right before the disability started.
20 in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that recency factor sounds really important.
It absolutely is. That's the insured status part we'll touch on. But second, you must meet the SSA's definition of disability, and it's a strict definition. We're talking about a medically diagnosed physical or mental condition that stops you from doing what they call substantial gainful activity, basically, significant work. And this condition must be expected to last at least 1 full year or, unfortunately, result in death. It's a high bar.
And that medical definition is the same for the other program, SSI too.
Exactly the same medical standard. We'll get to SSI, but yeah, the medical hurdles are identical. Third, and this ties back to the work credits, is the insured status timing. This trips a lot of people up. You have to prove you became disabled while you were still insured under Social Security. Those work credits, they don't last forever if you stop working. Your insurance coverage generally expires a few years after you stop working and paying FICA taxes. So the timing of when your disability began is crucial.
Wow, okay, so someone could work for 20 years, stopped, and then become disabled 6 years later and potentially not qualify for SSDI.
That's exactly the kind of difficult situation we sometimes see. The timing really matters. And finally, there's an income limit related to work called Substantial Gainful Activity, or SGA. Now, SSDI isn't based on your overall wealth savings or unearned income, don't count against you here, but you can't be working and earning too much. For 2025, that SGA amount is around $4,470 a month for non-blind individuals. If you're earning more than that through work, SSA will generally say you're not disabled under their rules, even with a severe condition.
So it's specifically about work earnings, not other money coming in.
Correct. Only earnings from work activity count towards SGA for SSDI. So wrapping up SSDI. It's for people who paid into the system, built up that work record, and now can't work because of a severe long-term disability. It's tied to your contributions.
That paints a very clear picture of SSDI.
Yeah.
It's really about your work history. So what happens if someone doesn't have that work history? Or maybe worked very little? That's where SSI comes in, right? Totally different basis.
Totally different, exactly. SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income, and the key word there is supplemental. It's fundamentally a needs-based program. Think of it as a safety net. It's for people who are disabled, blind, or elderly, meaning 65 or older, but who have very limited income and very few resources or assets. Critically, you don't need any work history to qualify for SSI. You could have never worked a day in your life and still be eligible if you meet the financial and disability or age rules.
Okay, needs-based. That sounds like the big divider. What are the specifics there? How limited does your income and your assets need to be?
Right. That financial need requirement is the absolute core of SSI. It's what we call means tested. The income limits are quite low, and any income you do have usually reduces your SSI payment. And for assets, the limit is generally $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a couple.
$2,000. That seems incredibly low. What counts towards that?
It is low. It counts things like money in bank accounts, stocks, bonds, but, and this is important, certain things are usually excluded. Your primary home, the land it's on, usually one vehicle, your personal belongings, household goods. Those typically don't count towards the $2,000 limit.
Ah, okay. So you could own a home and still potentially qualify. That's a key detail.
Absolutely, it surprises people. Now, besides the financial side, you also need to meet the disability or age requirement. If you're under 65, you have to meet that same strict SSA definition of disability we talked about for SSDI. But if you're 65 or older, you can actually qualify based on age alone if you meet the financial requirements. You don't also have to be disabled.
Got it. So 65 plus low-income assets can potentially get you SSI even without a disability.
Correct. Then there's residence. You have to live in the U.S. or certain territories. If you're outside the country for 30 straight days or more, your SSI benefits usually stop.
Okay. Important for anyone thinking of travel.
Definitely. And lastly, because it's needs-based, there's ongoing reporting. You have to report changes, income, assets, living situation, even marital status to the SSA pretty promptly, because those changes can affect your eligibility or payment amount from month to month.
Makes sense. If it's based on need, they need to know if your need changes.
Exactly. So SSI, in short, is that safety net. It provides a basic monthly income for people in severe need due to age, blindness, or disability, regardless of their work history.
Okay, the foundations are clear now. SSDI tied to work, SSI tied to need, two very different pillars supporting people. Let's put them directly head-to-head on some key features. How do they stack up?
Good idea. Let's do a quick compare and contrast, because even though SSA runs both, the differences are stark. Basis of eligibility, we've hit this, but SSDI, your work history and paying taxes. SSI, your financial need, low-income assets, plus disability or age.
Right. One's earned, one's welfare-based, essentially.
You could frame it that way, yeah. Funding source. SSDI comes from the Social Security Trust funds, the money you paid in. SSI comes from the U.S. Treasury's general funds, completely separate pot of money.
Interesting. So SSI doesn't drain the Social Security retirement funds people worry about.
Correct. Totally separate funding. Next, benefit calculation. Big difference here. SSDI payments depend on your lifetime average earnings. Higher earnings mean a higher SSDI check, potentially over $3,000 a month at the max end. SSI, though, is a flat federal rate. In 2023, it was $914 for an individual, and that amount gets reduced by other income you might have. Almost dollar for dollar sometimes.
Wow, okay. So SSDI reflects past earnings. SSI provides a basic floor. What about health insurance? That's huge.
Crucial difference. SSDI recipients usually get Medicare, but there's generally a 24-month waiting period after your disability benefits start before Medicare kicks in.
2 years. That's a long wait.
It can be a very difficult gap. SSI recipients, on the other hand, typically get Medicaid right away upon approval. In many states, like Virginia, it's automatic once you're approved for SSI.
Immediate Medicaid with SSI versus delayed Medicare with SSDI. That's a massive difference.
It really is. Then, additional beneficiaries. SSDI can sometimes pay benefits to your dependents, maybe a spouse or minor children, based on your work record. SSI doesn't do that. Benefits are only for the eligible individual. If a child is disabled and the family has low income assets, the child applies for SSI in their own right.
So SSDI can support a family. SSI supports the individual. What about age?
Age of recipient. SSDI is mostly for working age adults who become disabled, though there's a path for disabled adult children based on a parent's record. SSI is much broader, available to disabled children if family meets financial limits, disabled adults, and seniors 65 plus who meet the financial need rules, disabled or not.
Okay, so SSI covers kids and seniors financially in need too. How about back pay? If it takes ages to get approved.
Big difference again. Retroactive benefits. SSDI can pay back benefits up to 12 months before you even applied, plus the time your application was pending, though there's a 5-month waiting period from when SSA decides your disability began. SSI. Absolutely no retroactive pay before the date you filed your application. Benefits can only start, at the earliest, the first full month after you apply.
Wow, so for SSI, applying ASAP is critical for payment start date.
Absolutely critical. Every month you wait to apply for SSI is a month of potential benefits lost forever.
Okay, and working while getting benefits.
Also different, impact of work. SSDI has things like a trial work period and rules around that SGA limit, $4,470 a month, that give you a bit more flexibility to try working without immediately losing benefits. SSI is much stricter. Even small amounts of earnings will reduce your SSI check, and earning over a certain lower limit can make you ineligible pretty quickly. The rules are complex, but much less forgiving for SSI.
So trying to work is a bit easier, or at least has more buffer under SSDI rules.
Generally, yes. Finally, continued eligibility reviews. Both programs have them. But SSI reviews often focus heavily on changes in your financial situation, while SSDI reviews are more about medical improvement or if you've returned to substantial work.
That side by side makes it incredibly clear. They really are aimed at different needs and circumstances, aren't they?
Completely different tools in the toolbox, even though both help with disability.
So the application itself,
Mm-hmm.
applying sounds like a nightmare. Is it double the forms, double the headache, if you might fit both?
That's a valid concern. It can feel overwhelming. But there's some good news. SSA generally uses a combined application process. When you apply for disability, they're set up to evaluate you for both SSDI and SSI based on the information you give them.
Oh, okay, so you don't necessarily have to file two totally separate claims from scratch.
Not usually, no. How to apply. You can typically start the SSDI application online at ssa.gov. That same online process often gathers enough info for them to check SSI eligibility, too. Sometimes, for SSI-only claims, or particularly for children's SSI, you might need to call or go into an SSA office to complete things, but the initial application often covers both. The point is, one starting point usually gets the ball rolling for both programs.
That's a relief. What about the information needed? Is it the same stuff?
Largely similar for the forms and information, especially the medical part. You'll need to provide details about your conditions, doctors, treatments, medications, how it affects your daily activities, and for adults, your full work history. That's standard for both. The main difference comes with SSI. Because it's needs-based, you'll have additional questions and need to provide proof about your income, your bank accounts, any other assets, your living arrangements. That detailed financial scrutiny is unique to the SSI side.
So more financial paperwork if SSI is potentially in the picture.
Exactly. But the disability determination itself, identical. Your medical file goes to the state agency, Virginia's DDS, for example. They review the medical evidence using the exact same standards, whether it's for SSDI, SSI, or both. That whole medical review process is unified.
Okay, that's good to know. The medical gate is the same. What happens after you get, hopefully, approved medically?
Then the paths diverge a bit for the financial review and decision. If it's SSDI approval, you'll get an award letter detailing your benefit amount and start date. If it's SSI approval or concurrent approval for both, SSA might need to do a final financial interview. They call it a PERC, pre-effectuation review contact, just to verify your income and assets are still within the limits right before payments start. And remember that point about SSI back pay? If it's a large amount, they often pay it in installments, unlike SSDI, which is usually a lump sum.
Right, installments for large SSI back pay.
Yep.
And what if you get denied? Which happens a lot, right?
Sadly, yes, initial denials are very common. But the denials and appeals process is also identical for both SSDI and SSI. You have the right to appeal. First step is reconsideration. Then, if denied again, you can request a hearing before an administrative law judge, ALJ. Persistence is absolutely key here. Many people who are initially denied win on appeal.
So common applications start. Identical medical review, identical appeal process.
Yeah.
But very different financial checks for SSI along the way.
That sums it up well.
Okay, this brings us to the bottom line for someone listening right now. Which one should I apply for? What's the practical advice?
Right, the million-dollar question. Here's how I'd break it down. First, if you have a significant work history, you've worked regularly, paid those Social Security taxes, you should always start by applying for SSDI. Think of it as claiming the insurance benefit you've paid for. SSDI often pays more than SSI. And even if you're unsure about your work credits, apply anyway. SSA will figure it out, and they'll automatically check if you might qualify for SSI if SSDI doesn't work out.
So work history. Start with SSDI.
Yeah.
Got it. What if you don't have that history, or very little?
Then if you're disabled or over 65 and have limited income and assets, you should definitely apply for SSI. For people with essentially no work history or maybe someone disabled since childhood, like we mentioned, SSI might be the only option, provided they meet those strict financial limits.
Makes sense. What if you're just not sure? Maybe you work some, but also have low income.
If you're unsure or think you might fit both, honestly, just apply. There's no penalty for applying for both. Let the SSA sort it out. They are required to determine your eligibility for any program you might qualify for. You might even get both concurrently, a small SSDI check supplemented by some SSI if your SSDI is below the SSI income level and you meet the SSI resource rules.
So you can get both at the same time.
Yes, it's called concurrent eligibility. It happens often when someone's SSDI benefit is low because their past earnings were low. And a really crucial piece of advice: don't self-disqualify, please. We see this constantly. People assume, oh, I haven't worked in 5 years, or I have $1,000 in savings, so I can't get anything. Don't make assumptions. The rules are complex. Talk to someone, a disability lawyer, an advocate, or even just call SSA directly. Find out for sure before deciding you're not eligible. You might be leaving needed help on the table.
That's huge. Don't count yourself out before you even start.
Exactly. And finally, consider the timeline. These applications take months, sometimes years if appeals are involved. Apply as soon as you believe you meet the disability criteria, especially for SSI because benefits can't start before your application date. The sooner you file, the sooner potential payments can begin.
So assess your work history, assess your financial need, apply even if unsure, don't rule yourself out, and file quickly.
That's the core strategy, yes. Let SSA determine the technical eligibility based on your situation.
That's incredibly clarifying. It really does just come down to your individual story, your work life, your current financial picture. It highlights how vital being informed is. And thinking bigger, understanding these details, it's not just about forms, is it? It's about accessing systems meant to provide support when you're potentially at your most vulnerable. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How aware are you, listening now, about these safety nets and exactly what it takes to access them?
It's a really important question, and this deep dive is just the start, really. There are related areas someone might need to explore depending on their situation. Things like how your age impacts SSDI claims the rules actually get a bit more favorable for applicants over 50, sometimes 55. Understanding the disability onset date is critical for back pay. Knowing how to effectively gather and present medical evidence to prove your case to SSA. Digging into the details of working while on benefits, those SSDI trial work rules versus the SSI income limits. Understanding concurrent benefits more deeply if that applies, or navigating the Medicare and Medicaid coordination. There's always more detail below the surface.
It shows how complex this area is, but also how crucial getting the right information is. The process might feel daunting, but knowing your options, knowing the rules, that's real power. It's absolutely essential for trying to secure your future when facing disability. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.